Good morning. I'm Ed James, and this is Black Almanac. Kim Jong-un's North Korean regime is frightening. Kim's government is the world's most totalitarian and most oppressive. President Trump is scary in many ways, but perhaps the most frightening nightmare is of him blundering into a new Korean war. The answer is not whether one is more crazy than the other, but why is one more crazy than the other? Are we on the doorsteps of World War III? Perhaps, perhaps not. Political analyst Dr. Lawrence Miller joins the discussion. Dr. Miller, did you ever think we would be to this point? And good morning, first of all.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your show again. And no, I did not think that we would be at this particular point. I mean, I knew that North Korea would be an issue, but I didn't think that in terms of on the brink of a catastrophe, like I believe we are. If one wrong move, one false move is made, we could have a disaster.
You know, one of the things that's interesting, you know that ceremonial thing that each president leaving office does for the other?
Yes.
Leave them the little list of things.
Right.
Well, the president that President Trump loves to hate, President Obama, left that as number one on his list of things that he should watch for.
Yes.
And even when they had their discussion, President Trump said he told them that.
Oh yeah, he definitely did. And the fact of the matter is, it's been an issue for the past, if you really think about it, it's been a problem for the past over 60 years. Because when I was first born, we had the Korean War.
Yes.
And there has never been a peace treaty between the two countries. There's only an armistice.
Yes.
And that has really perpetuated technically a ceasefire of arms, but not a peace treaty in a true sense.
Well, do you think our current president knows the difference between a peace treaty?
It's hard to know what he thinks, because he may say something to you one day, and then a few hours later, not even the next day, say something altogether different. So the thing to me here is that this conflict has been ongoing through a number of different presidencies, but this particular administration has said that it is going to take a new tack, a new direction as far as dealing with North Korea is concerned. And it's going to be more robust and more aggressive. Now, whether that is going to meet with success or not is highly debatable.
From where I sit, I know Kim Jong-un is a, yes, lunatic would be the right word, as much as the president is, if just being frank.
Yes.
What I wonder and worry about, will our president blunder into World War III?
That's a good question. It's a good question. Now, he just got through, he was at a meeting that had nothing to do with North Korea and spoke to a reporter asking a question revolving around North Korea and this issue of a miniaturized atomic bomb on top of one of the intercontinental ballistic missiles. And he made the statement of fire and fury if they keep threatening the United States. Well, no sooner than he got that out of his mouth practically, the North Koreans threatened Guam. Then they followed that up, in case you didn't really get the message, with more specifics as to how they're going to go ahead and respond to President Trump's threat to go ahead. This is a red line you better not cross. Don't threaten us. They went ahead and said, we're going to send missiles over by Guam. Just so you know, in terms, I think the last part of their communique is what you understand as force. Okay? So you're in a battle as far as leadership is concerned, of a war of words. One false move, as I said before, if a missile, they talked about 4 missiles going towards Guam. One of those missiles
Goes straight.
goes straight and hits Guam or hits Hawaii.
Yeah.
Where are we then?
What we have is 2 presidents with daddy problems. and when you have 2 at the same time,
Yes.
the same way,
Yes.
the rest of us are at the mercy of them.
No question. And, you know, we have, as far as North Korea is concerned, have numerous times said, don't do this, don't do that. May it be in terms of an atomic bomb, may it be intercontinental ballistic missiles, may it be militarized atomic bombs. And each and every time they have gone ahead and crossed the line. We can understand the frustration of every administration revolving around that. But the fact of the matter is that not too long ago, a few days before he made this statement talking about President Trump, they had already won sanctions against North Korea in the UN.
And no one thought that was going to happen.
Right.
Governor Nikki Haley doing an excellent job. Secretary of State Tillerson has finally been allowed to come on his own. As soon as that happens,
Yes.
our president decides, you know, to get upset about, folds his arms and talks about fire and fury.
Yes.
And Kim Jong-un says, hey, you want fire and fury? We'll show you fire and fury.
But the thing here is, I think the difference between the two of them is the fact that President Trump speaks directly. He doesn't let necessarily all the, you know, bellicose come from, let's say, for example, his Secretary of Defense, which would be their role. So the United States has, since Pearl Harbor, its foreign policy has been 2 things: political realism and moral idealism. In other words, moral idealism deals with, in terms of political science, the fact that the world could be better off if we all cooperated. Political realism, it revolves around the fact that you have to have a strong defense because the world is a dangerous place. So we go ahead and we promulgate this policy around the world, okay? Here it is, we win from the perspective of moral idealism as far as the sanctions are concerned, because that's diplomacy. We bring China in, we bring Russia in, all these different countries that haven't been on our side necessarily with North Korea. Now they've come together to go ahead and put sanctions on them that they haven't had to experience before. So instead of letting his Secretary of State or his Secretary of Defense say something and him sit back, right, and let things play themselves out, only when it's necessary for him to speak, right, should he come forward. He lets Kim Jong-un get under his skin and make a statement where now he's established a red line not to cross.
You know, among things, and you remember he had a whole lot to say about President Obama and making red lines and not doing anything.
Yes.
I don't think Kim Jong-un is suicidal.
No, I don't think so either.
And I think his development of nuclear weapons is the big stick theory.
Yes.
I have one too.
Exactly.
Now, if he would fire his first and hit the U.S. or Hawaii, he may get away with Guam. That is suicide.
Yes. You know, it's interesting that you use that term, the big stick, because when I think about it, I think about Teddy Roosevelt, President of the United States, who was a Republican. And his statement was, speak softly and carry a big stick. See, President Trump is speaking loudly and talking about a big stick. When you speak softly and you talk about what it is that you believe in, right, you get other people to get behind you. You form a coalition, like what happened in the UN. But when you go out alone and you start talking about how you're going to go ahead and bring fire and fury and, frankly, power that the world has never seen, people get understandably anxious because they believe that you're talking about using nuclear weapons right off the bat.
Yeah, because especially when you said fire and fury like the world has never seen. Now, when what we saw in Hiroshima and Okinawa was what the world had never seen before.
Right.
So do you mean something more than that?
And the United States has 6,800 nuclear missiles. At best, North Korea could have 15, right?
And if you're optimistic, you'll say they may have 50.
Right. If you say we'll be optimistic. But you're right, Hiroshima and Nagasaki should be a lesson, right? In terms of you use it judiciously. You don't go ahead and start talking about things like that relative to a situation that's a tinderbox like we're talking about right now, unless you're actually going to go ahead and do it, period.
Well, let's talk about, should that, for any reason we get to that point, are we going to call 28,000 American soldiers in South Korea and hundreds of thousands of Koreans collateral damage? Because surely
they're not going to sit idly by and go ahead and have the United States attack them and not do anything. This is not like Syria, okay? This is not Iraq, okay? This is a situation where these people have been geared up for war for the last 50 years or better, okay? So it's understandable that there's apprehension. It's understandable that people are anxious. And more so in South Korea and Japan and Southeast Asia, because those are the countries that will catch the fire and fury first. And, you know, if you're going to do that, there's other steps that you should take first. You should talk to your allies, okay? You should go ahead and talk to the American people first and foremost, because we're left to sit on this situation not knowing what's going to happen unless, you know, somebody says something and now you're firing off a missile. That's where we are. He hasn't talked to Congress, had no speaking to the nation as far as this situation is concerned. So these kind of things have their way of ratcheting up anxiety on both sides.
And there's another real danger. Russia is right next door to North Korea.
Yes.
Now, what happens when we start to retaliate when it starts and something drops beyond the line?
And China.
Yeah. And if it's really nuclear, should we use nuclear? Nuclear doesn't understand when it starts, the fumes and stuff start coming up, that it can't go
across the border.
Across the border.
Right. It's a very precarious situation, and that's why your concern about war as it relates to World War III is a valid one, because it seems as though the slightest provocation may end up pushing us into a Pandora's box that we don't want to open.
I think about Japan that you just mentioned. We owe Japan And you have Kim Jong-un now talking about firing missiles across Japan to hit Guam.
Right.
We should never be into that kind of discussion.
No, we shouldn't. And as I said before, we should be talking to our allies, of which Japan is one, and South Korea especially. The other part of this whole piece, understanding it from a political perspective, we have to look at the things that you just got to mentioning as far as the leader of North Korea and our own president, and understand this from a political perspective as to their behavior. There's a certain field within political science that talks about psychology and political science coming together under political behavior. And the political behavior, especially looking at it from the United States perspective, is that President Trump, it seems to me, has more people around him who have a military background. His chief of staff, his secretary of defense, his national security advisor, okay, that he respects. Now, the rest of the people in his cabinet, I haven't seen him give the level of respect that he gives to those individuals, which belies to me a more authoritarian perspective, okay? And also hearing that every day, at least twice during the day, they have to come in with some
good news.
Good news. Good news.
A folder full.
A folder full of good news that he is, you know, the greatest thing since sliced bread, tells me that there are some issues going on here, okay, that don't necessarily you see on the surface, but underneath.
Oh yeah, and in case some of our viewers missed that,
Yes.
every day,
Yes.
twice a day, they come in with a folder full of favorable comments or favorable press.
Exactly.
Now, we know that he's not getting that much favorable anything. So are they preparing fake news for him?
That's a good question. But the thing here is that why does he need it in the first place? I mean, you know, when we start thinking about these things, and he used the same terminology towards North Korea that he used towards the opioid epidemic, where he was having this meeting with these different professional people revolving around it. You know, the fire and fury and frankly power. This is the same catchphrase that he used then that he used with North Korea. So I'm kind of in a quandary as to this individual's stability as it relates to staying on message when we go from one area to another. Because it's one thing to say those things when you start talking about a domestic issue. It's another thing when you say these things as far as another foreign leader and country is concerned. Because what you say there has to be more measured, has to be more in tune with, if I say this as President of the United States, I'm going to back it up.
Well, also, I think he has a limited vocabulary. And so to separate opioid epidemic and military readiness, maybe he's just not able to do that.
Well, you talk about military readiness. He, as we have talked about, the fact that he made the statement that the United States, since he came in, has ratcheted up its military readiness, especially from a nuclear perspective. And in 6 or 7 months, you cannot do that. It doesn't even make sense in terms of being able to do something like that, that's intricate and that complex, okay? The other thing, going back to the opiate issue, he pulled all these people together because they told him that it is a national emergency. And he said, no, we're going to go ahead and address this problem, but we're going to address this problem more from a law enforcement perspective. I haven't been a person who sit on nonprofits that deal with substance abuse and also run a substance abuse prevention agency. I can tell you that it's more cost effective and more efficient to provide treatment rather than just locking people up. We've done that, we've been there already.
And I agree with you, but I'll also tell you it's a health problem. And because it's affecting so many people,
Yes.
114 dying every day here in the United States. And frankly, because so many whites are being affected, they will not allow him to get away with making it a criminal justice issue. They did that when the black community was being ravaged by crack cocaine.
Yes.
Lock them all up, and it's a
throw away the key because it's a moral failing of these individuals. But the fact of the matter is, as far as that issue is concerned, you know, if Republicans are keeping with their philosophy, their political philosophy, you should be going with what's more cost effective and efficient rather than something that's costing more money. So here it is, treatment is proven to go ahead and be less expensive and have a better result. So they tell him this, and his response is law enforcement, again, from this authoritarian perspective.
You know, going back to where we started this discussion, I was thinking about Guam. And Guam, we have a military and air base at Guam.
Yes, Anderson.
And now, we're supposed to be 14 minutes away if we had to get our fastest bombers, B-1, and we now have been told that, which I thought should be classified information, that we've just moved 4 B-1 bombers to Guam, and they're thinking about some kind of surgical strike in North Korea that would not be nuclear. And the president tells us. And what happens to classified information? Now, even when he tells us, his people come and say, oh, but he can declassify anything he wants because he's president. No, that's an excuse. They don't know what he's going to say, when he's going to say it. He just says the last thing he's heard that they've had to say about something and starts running off at the mouth.
Yeah, not what is that Teddy Roosevelt saying?
Yeah.
Speaking softly.
Yeah.
You're talking loud and telegraphing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the thing here is, if I'm out in the field, if I'm an operative out in the field, and he starts to talking, people pick up on what he's talking about. He's put my life in jeopardy.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's a reason why these things are classified, and even in terms of the president, he should take those things under consideration. But, you know, and thinking about a Quinnipiac poll that came out, they talked about and asked people as it relates to what they believe. And 54% of the people in that poll said they were embarrassed that he's president. 63% said he does not share our values. 62% said he's not honest. And 71% said he's not level-headed. That last one is a very important aspect of being president of the United States. Because if you're not level-headed, you're putting people's lives on the line.
Well, he's shown us that from day one, the level-headedness, the issue of having someone praise him with everything he does. And finally, not finally, but you will remember when the Russian ambassador was here, how he put the American press out of the room and let them keep their cameraman and reporter in the room. And he said all sorts of negative things about recently firing Comey, FBI director,
Yep.
and was grinning. Now, and then talks about leaking.
Yes.
Now, the people who he let in, since there were no American cameras in the room, the American press could not leak that.
Right.
His friends, the Russians, showed the world what kind of guy that they are playing with. And I use playing purposely.
Yeah. And they said that they had transcripts of the meeting. So the only people who were taking any notes were, as you say, the Russians. Now, just here recently, Paul Manafort's home, his former campaign manager, was raided. The FBI went and tried to find, had a search warrant, and went to find if there were documents that are incriminating as far as, I'm assuming, as far as he is concerned, because in order to get a search warrant in the first place, you have to go to a judge, you have to have probable cause, you have to have some charge that
And
you're
you have to
contemplating.
convince them that you believe that what you are looking for, because you talk about specifics.
Yes.
Now, not blanket search warrant. You talk about specifics. You have to believe that what certain pieces of information that are pertinent to your investigation are there.
Exactly. It's not a fishing expedition.
No.
You're not opening up somebody's home. No, let me see what they got inside here from a perspective. I don't know what I'm going to charge him with, but I'm going to charge him with something. Yeah.
I'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you.
And thanks again.
My pleasure.
Bethlehem Bible Church Male Choir celebrates 10 years of ministering songs for the Lord, featuring Marsha Page. Other local male choirs also. August 27th at 4 p.m. Bethlehem Bible Church, 1680 18th Street, Sarasota, Florida. The Sarasota County NAACP and Suncoast Women of Action present their latest in the series of community convocations, The Politics of Survival, a series on voting and your ability to impact your future. A talk with Sarasota Mayor Shelley Freeland-Eddy, Thursday, August 24th, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Robert L. Taylor Community Complex, 1834 John Rivers Street, Sarasota, Florida. For more information, contact Trevor Harvey, 941-355-2097, or Helen James, 941-228-8191.
If you're only hungry for a slice of apple pie, why buy the whole pie? And you certainly wouldn't want to pay for an all-you-can-eat buffet. So if you don't use your cell phone that much, why get charged for a plan that's too big, or even an unlimited plan? Luckily, there's still a wireless company that shares your values. Welcome to Consumer Cellular. Our average customer pays about $25 a month for everything they need. Many pay even less, as plans start at just $10 a month. You'll get a straightforward bill that's easy to understand, with no surprises, and all the attention you deserve from our friendly customer service team. No wonder Consumer Cellular has received J.D. Power Awards for highest customer service. Plus, if you're an AARP member, you'll receive special discounts. It's easy to switch. You can even keep your phone and your number. So stop paying for more than you need and start your 30-day risk-free trial today. Call 800-457-2317. Go online or visit a Target store today.